been besmirched. Sweet Ella Mae's been courted, but the darling ain't been churched.
Now gather round, young'uns, because I got a few things to say to you.
Cool it, cats. Granny's gonna lay a few words on us. Go, Granny.
The Beverly Hillbillies wasn't supposed to work. Critics hated it. Intellectuals mocked it. And CBS executives feared it would destroy the network's reputation. But 60 million Americans disagreed, making it the most watched show on television. Behind the banjo music and the cement pond, nothing was simple. Actors walked off set, fortunes were lost, and one decision nearly prevented the show from existing at all. These are 20 secrets about the Beverly Hillbillies that stayed buried for decades. The bonus? A rusty truck that became worth more than the mansion. Grab your possum stew. This gets wild. Number 20. The show was created as revenge against New York critics.
I did the first episodes alone simply because
This is Beverly Hills.
Paul Henning didn't create the Beverly Hillbillies to entertain America. He created it to prove critics wrong. For years, New York entertainment journalists had dismissed rural comedy as lowbrow garbage beneath serious television. They praised sophisticated urban sitcoms while sneering at anything that featured farmers, small towns, or country values. Henning, who'd grown up in Missouri and never forgot his roots, took it personally. He'd been writing for television since the early days, working on shows like The George Burns and Gracie Allen Show. Watching network executives bow to coastal elite opinions about what constituted quality programming. So he decided to create the most aggressively rural show possible. A middle finger disguised as family entertainment. The premise was simple. Take the poorest, most backward hillbilly family imaginable and drop them into the wealthiest, most pretentious neighborhood in America. Watch the collision. CBS was skeptical. Worried the concept was too broad, too unsophisticated. But Henning had a track record, and they gave him a shot. When the Beverly Hillbillies premiered in September 1962, critics savaged it exactly as expected, and then it became the #1 show in America, almost immediately, proving that regular people didn't care what New York thought. Number 19. Buddy Ebsen was cast after a nightmare experience on The Wizard of Oz.
Here. Go away and let us alone.
Oh, scared, huh? Afraid, huh? How long did it stay?
Oh, wait a minute. Hold it. How could a bunch of hillbillies possibly buy a mansion like this? Let's take...
When Buddy Ebsen signed on to play Jed Clampett, he was 54 years old and carrying trauma from Hollywood's darkest chapter. 23 years earlier, he'd been cast as the Tin Man in The Wizard of Oz, a role that nearly killed him. The aluminum powder makeup used on set poisoned him, coating his lungs, causing breathing problems so severe he was hospitalized for weeks. He lost the role to Jack Haley and spent years recovering, both physically and emotionally. The experience made him cautious about Hollywood, suspicious of studios that prioritize production over people. When Paul Henning approached him about the Beverly Hillbillies, Ebsen was working steadily, but not starring in anything significant. He'd become a character actor, reliable but invisible. The role of Jed Clampett offered something different. A lead role on a network sitcom with a producer who treated actors like human beings. Ebsen read the script and recognized something special, a character written with dignity despite the comedic premise. Jed wasn't a fool. He was wise, decent, and honest, just out of place in Beverly Hills. Ebsen accepted the role and transformed it into something iconic, bringing warmth and authenticity that elevated the entire show. Number 18. Irene Ryan was a vaudeville legend nobody recognized.
Will you change the dime, please?
Sure. And then what's he say?
Really, Dean? People are people.
Yeah?
Oh, certainly. Hillbillies are no different than anybody else. All they might...
Granny wasn't played by an old woman. She was played by Irene Ryan, a 60-year-old vaudeville veteran who'd been performing since childhood. Ryan had spent decades on stage, touring the country, perfecting timing and physical comedy in front of live audiences who demanded perfection. By the time she auditioned for the Beverly Hillbillies, she'd done everything: radio, film, theater, even early television. But she'd never been a star, always the supporting player, the reliable professional who made everyone else look good. Paul Henning saw her audition and knew immediately she was Granny. Ryan brought ferocity to the role, playing Daisy Mae Moses as a tiny tornado of rage and superstition. She did her own stunts, insisted on physical comedy that would have broken actresses half her age, and delivered every line with perfect timing. What audiences didn't know was that Ryan was younger than Buddy Ebsen, who played her son-in-law. Makeup and costume made her look ancient, but underneath she was energetic, athletic, and completely committed to the bit. Off-set, she'd take off the granny costume and transform back into a sophisticated woman who loved jazz and fine dining. The contrast was jarring, proof of how completely she disappeared into the character. Number 17, Donna Douglas. Almost turned down. The role of Ellie.
Buzzing.
Sound.
Buzzing.
You're a young lady now. You start finding your manners and fixing yourself up real nice and wearing dresses.
Ellie Mae. Clampett became one of television's most iconic characters, but Donna Douglas initially didn't want to play her. Douglas was trying to build a serious acting career, taking dramatic roles, studying method acting, positioning herself as the next big dramatic star. When her agent sent her the script for the Beverly Hillbillies, she was insulted. A dumb blonde who talked to animals and couldn't count past 10? It felt like a step backward, a return to the cheesecake roles she'd been trying to escape. But her agent convinced her to audition, arguing that network television exposure could open doors. Douglas showed up skeptical and left intrigued. Paul Henning's script had more depth than she'd expected, and the character, while naive, had genuine sweetness and strength. She accepted the role with reservations, planning to use it as a stepping stone. Then the show became a phenomenon. Suddenly Donna Douglas was famous, recognized everywhere, her face on magazine covers and lunchboxes. The fame was overwhelming and ultimately limiting. Casting directors saw her as Ellie Mae and nothing else, making the serious dramatic roles she'd wanted impossible to get. The character she'd almost turned down became her blessing and her curse, launching her to stardom while trapping her there forever. Number 16, Max Baer. Jr. hated playing Jethro.
No, I got it armor plated. I'm a walking tank with this on.
Max Baer Jr. came from boxing royalty. His father, the former heavyweight champion of the world. He'd grown up around fame, around athletes and celebrities, and wanted to prove he was more than his father's son. Acting seemed like the path when he was good at it, handsome and charming with natural screen presence. Then he got cast as Jethro Bodine, and everything changed. Jethro was an idiot, a country bumpkin whose stupidity drove most of the show's comedy. Baer played the role perfectly, committing fully to the character's dim-witted enthusiasm. But off-screen, he resented it. He was intelligent, educated, nothing like the character he portrayed. People started treating him like Jethro in real life, talking slowly, making assumptions about his intelligence. It infuriated him. He tried launching other projects during the show's run, directing episodes, developing scripts, proving he had range, but nobody cared. To audiences, he was Jethro, and that was all he'd ever be. After the Beverly Hillbillies ended, Baer struggled to find work. Casting directors couldn't see past the character, and he eventually left acting altogether, becoming a successful businessman, and later getting involved in legal battles over Beverly Hillbillies, merchandise, and casino branding rights. Number 15. The Clampett Mansion was a real Beverly Hills estate.
He shaped for himself, often with his own hands, in one of the loveliest spots in Britain, just 25 miles from London.
Fabulous Beverly Hills estate of Mr. Jed Clampett. There's the beautiful front lawn, which the Clampetts almost plowed up and planted in crop.
The sprawling mansion where the Clampetts lived wasn't a set. It was Chartwell, a 10-acre estate in Bel Air that had been built in 1933 and was one of Los Angeles' most expensive properties. The production rented it for exterior shots, filming the Clampetts arriving, sitting by the pool, and interacting in the driveway. Interior scenes were filmed on sound stages, but that exterior grounded the show in reality, making the fish out of water premise feel authentic. The mansion's owners tolerated the production because the rental income was substantial, but they had rules. Filming couldn't disrupt their lives, couldn't damage property, couldn't turn the estate into a circus. The crew learned to work quickly, getting shots efficiently before packing up and disappearing. What made it even more interesting was the estate's history. It had been owned by wealthy industrialists, had hosted Hollywood legends, had been featured in other films and television shows. The Beverly Hillbillies just added another chapter to its story. Years later, after the show ended, the mansion changed hands multiple times, eventually being purchased by billionaire Jerry Perenchio for over $7 million. Though later owners spent much more, it remains one of Los Angeles' most iconic estates, forever associated with the Clampetts, despite only being their home on camera. Number 14, the show made CBS billions, but the cast saw little of it.
Come and listen to my story about a man named Jed. A poor mountaineer barely kept his family fed. And then one day he was shooting at some food.
Don't understand them. And so a fellow who...
The Beverly Hillbillies was a money-printing machine for CBS. At its peak, it was the most-watched show on television, commanding premium advertising rates and generating massive profits. Reruns sold to local stations for record amounts. Merchandise flooded stores. The network was swimming in money, but the cast had signed standard contracts before anyone knew the show would be a hit, locking them into salaries that didn't reflect the show's success. Buddy Ebsen, as the lead, earned the most, but even his salary was a fraction of what modern stars make. Donna Douglas and Max Baer Jr. earned less, and Irene Ryan, despite being essential to the show, was paid even less than them. They renegotiated over the years, fighting for raises, but CBS held the leverage. The actors were replaceable, or so the network believed. None of them earned ownership stakes or profit participation. Standard practice in the early 60s, but devastating in retrospect. When the show ended, they walked away with their salaries and nothing more. Meanwhile, CBS continued earning millions from syndication, home video, and streaming rights. The cast watched their creation generate fortunes they'd never touch. A reminder that television success doesn't guarantee financial security. Number 13, the theme song, almost got the show canceled.
Listen to a story about a man named Jed. Poor mountaineer barely kept his family fed. And one day...
Come and listen to my story about a man named Jed. A poor mountaineer barely kept his family fed. And then one day he was shooting at some food.
The ballad opening each episode, explaining how Jed struck oil and moved to Beverly Hills, became one of television's most recognizable theme songs. But network executives hated it initially. They thought it was too country, too unsophisticated, too much information crammed into one song. They wanted something modern, something that fit the slick Beverly Hills setting, rather than highlighting the hillbilly origins. Paul Henning fought back hard. The song was essential, he argued, providing context. Audiences needed to understand the premise. Without it, viewers might be confused about why these people lived in a mansion. CBS reluctantly agreed to test it for the pilot, reserving the right to change it later. But audience response was overwhelming. People loved the song, learned the words, sang along. It became part of the show's identity, inseparable from the Beverly Hillbillies brand. CBS backed down, letting the theme stay. The song was written and performed by Lester Flatt and Earl Scruggs, bluegrass legends who had been playing together for years. Their involvement brought authenticity and credibility, connecting the show to real country music traditions. The theme became so iconic that it outlived the series, used in parodies, referenced in other shows, instantly recognizable decades later to people who'd never even seen an episode. Number 12, Raymond Bailey's Mr. Drysdale, was based on real bankers.
Well, I'm all done. See you later.
Wait for your secretary.
My what? Well, I'm all done. See you later.
Wait for your secretary.
My what?
Raymond Bailey played Milburn Drysdale, the greedy banker obsessed with keeping the Clampett fortune in his institution, and the character wasn't exaggerated. Paul Henning had researched how banks treated wealthy clients, especially unsophisticated ones, and discovered a world of manipulation and exploitation. Bankers would befriend rich clients, insert themselves into every financial decision, and slowly siphon money through fees, investments, and schemes. Drysdale was that reality turned into comedy. A man who'd do anything, debase himself completely to keep the Clampetts' millions under his control. Bailey brought desperation to the role, playing Drysdale as simultaneously pathetic and predatory. He'd grovel before Jed while scheming behind his back, switching between personas instantly. What made it work was Bailey's own background. Before becoming an actor, he'd worked in business, understood corporate culture, knew how ambition could corrupt. He brought that knowledge to Drysdale, making the character feel real despite the broad comedy. Off-screen, Bailey was nothing like his character, generous and kind, beloved by the cast. But when the cameras rolled, he became Wall Street in human form, a reminder that the show's satire had teeth even when audiences were laughing too hard to notice. Number 11. Nancy Culp and Buddy Ebsen's friendship ended in politics.
D with the U is D-U, D-U, U-D, U-D, U-A, U-A. G with the U is G-U.
Beautiful day. Gee, I'd sure like to. But I'd ask. I'll tell you what. I'll let you drive my car.
Nancy Culp played Miss Jane Hathaway, Mr. Drysdale's long-suffering secretary, with brilliant comedic timing and subtle characterization. For 9 seasons, she and Buddy Ebsen worked together closely, developing genuine friendship off-screen. They'd have dinner, discuss scripts, support each other through Hollywood's chaos. Then, in 1984, Culp ran for Congress in Pennsylvania as a Democrat. She campaigned on progressive policies, environmentalism, and women's rights. Buddy Ebsen, a staunch conservative Republican, was furious. He felt betrayed, believing Culp's politics were wrong and dangerous. When her opponent's campaign asked him to record a radio ad attacking her, he agreed, his voice telling voters that Nancy Culp was too liberal for Pennsylvania. The ad shocked everyone. Culp was devastated, unable to understand how someone she'd considered family could sabotage her so publicly. She lost the election, blaming Ebsen's intervention at least partially for the defeat. They never spoke again. The friendship that had survived 9 seasons and countless episodes couldn't survive politics, proof that even the closest bonds can shatter when ideology intervenes. Culp later said it was the most painful betrayal of her life, worse than losing the election itself, must because it came from someone she'd trusted completely. Number 10. The show was deliberately canceled. See, despite high ratings.
Shows were canceled, and as Pat Buckland said, they canceled everything with a tree in it.
I got a feeling this is going to be a long day. Speaking of breakfast...
In 1971, the Beverly Hillbillies was still pulling respectable ratings, still profitable, still popular with millions of viewers, but CBS canceled it anyway, along with Green Acres and Petticoat Junction, in what became known as the Rural Purge. The decision wasn't about money or viewership. It was about demographics and image. Network executives had determined that rural comedies attracted older, rural audiences that advertisers didn't want. Madison Avenue coveted young, urban, educated consumers with disposable income, not farmers and small-town families watching shows about hillbillies. So CBS systematically eliminated every rural show from its lineup, replacing them with edgier, more sophisticated programming like All in the Family and The Mary Tyler Moore Show. The cast was blindsided. They'd assumed the show would run forever, or at least get a proper conclusion. Instead, they got a cancellation notice and a final season that didn't know it was final. The last episode aired with no fanfare, no goodbye, just another episode that happened to be the end. Paul Henning was furious, feeling the network had betrayed the show that had made them billions. But CBS didn't care. They were chasing a different audience, building a different image, and the Beverly Hillbillies didn't fit anymore. The show that had dominated the 60s became a casualty of the 70s, sacrificed for demographic data and advertising trends. Number 9, Irene Ryan was nominated for an Emmy and lost to a variety show.
The winner in Hollywood is Mary Tyler Moore.
You know how it is, Dean. I'm an actress. Granny Clampett is just a character that I've created.
You're so completely different, like oil and water.
Irene Ryan's performance as Granny was brilliant, a masterclass in physical comedy and timing that elevated every scene she touched. In 1963, she was nominated for Outstanding Continued Performance by an actress in a series, recognition that felt long overdue. Ryan had been performing for 50 years, and this was her first major award nomination. She attended the ceremony hopeful, surrounded by the cast, believing this might finally be her moment. Then she lost to Carol Burnett for The Carol Burnett Show. The disappointment was crushing, not because Burnett didn't deserve recognition, but because Ryan knew how Hollywood worked. Comedy actresses rarely won awards, especially in sitcoms, and especially when playing characters dismissed as lowbrow. This had been her shot, possibly her only shot, and it was gone. She smiled through the ceremony, congratulated Burnett graciously, and never mentioned the loss publicly. But friends said it haunted her, this validation that had come so close but remained just out of reach. Ryan was nominated again in 1968 and lost again. She never won an Emmy for the Beverly Hillbillies, despite creating one of television's most memorable characters. The Academy preferred sophisticated comedy, urban wit, anything but hillbillies. And Irene Ryan, who'd given everything to Granny, was never properly honored for it. Number 8. The cement pond became more famous than real. Swimming pools.
Can I go swimming in the cement pond?
Oh, I reckon so, Jethro. But this ain't like the swimming hole back home.
One joke in the pilot episode became a cultural phenomenon. When the Clampetts discovered the swimming pool at their Beverly Hills mansion, Jed called it a cement pond, and the name stuck. Suddenly, everyone in America was calling swimming pools cement ponds, the phrase entering the national vocabulary overnight. It became shorthand for hillbilly logic, the idea that sophisticated things could be redefined through innocent misunderstanding. What made it brilliant was the truth underneath the joke. A swimming pool was essentially a cement pond, just with better marketing. The Clampetts weren't wrong, just unsophisticated. And that distinction drove the show's satire. Paul Henning loved how the phrase caught on, how it demonstrated that the Beverly Hillbillies was influencing American culture despite critical dismissal. Pool companies even started using cement pond in advertising, leaning into the joke, recognizing that the show's popularity meant fighting it was pointless. Decades after the show ended, people still say cement pond, often without knowing where it came from. The phrase outlived the series, became part of the language, proof that the Beverly Hillbillies had more impact than intellectuals wanted to admit. It was just one joke in one episode, but it became immortal, the most successful single line in sitcom history. Number 7. Donna Douglas turned down Playboy. Multiple times.
So I always tell people, it's amazing what God can do with a life,
right,
if he's given the opportunity. So it really...
She pretty.
Yeah. But Ellie, you're showing too much bare hop.
Well, that ain't her fault, Granny. She just got the dress on.
Ellie Mae's tight jeans and wholesome sex appeal made Donna Douglas one of America's biggest pinup stars, despite the character's innocence. Men fantasized about her, women wanted to be her, and Playboy magazine wanted her naked. They offered repeatedly, increasing the money each time, promising tasteful photography and editorial control. Hugh Hefner himself called, making his pitch, explaining how appearing in Playboy would cement her status as a cultural icon. Douglas refused every time without hesitation. She was a devout Christian who'd grown up in Louisiana with strict Baptist values, and posing nude violated everything she believed. The money didn't matter, the exposure didn't matter, the career opportunities didn't matter. She wouldn't compromise her faith for fame. The refusals frustrated Playboy and confused Hollywood, where actresses routinely made similar decisions for far less money. But Douglas was resolute, explaining in interviews that Ellie Mae's appeal came from innocence, and destroying that would betray both the character and herself. Years later, she said it was the easiest decision she'd ever made. Never a moment of doubt or regret. While other actresses struggled with exploitation and objectification, Douglas maintained control over her image completely, drawing lines the industry couldn't cross. Her refusal became legendary, proof that fame didn't have to mean selling everything. Number 6. Max Baer Jr. spent decades fighting for Beverly Hillbillies. writes after
The attorney for the plaintiffs will proceed.
Your Honor, the maimed and broken bodies of my clients speak more.
After the show ended, Max Bader Jr. tried to capitalize on his association with the Beverly Hillbillies, developing restaurants, casinos, and merchandise using the name and his likeness as Jethro. CBS sued him repeatedly, claiming they owned all rights to the show and its characters. The legal battles consumed decades and cost Baer millions in legal fees. He argued that he'd created aspects of Jethro's characterization that went beyond the script, that his performance had value separate from CBS ownership. The courts disagreed, siding with the network in most rulings, reinforcing that actors had no ownership stake in characters they portrayed. Baer won some smaller battles, getting permission to use his name and likeness in certain contexts, but the broader war was lost. The experience embittered him, made him cynical about Hollywood and intellectual property law. He watched CBS continue earning millions from Beverly Hillbillies, syndication, and merchandise while he struggled financially, unable to leverage his most famous role. In interviews, he'd speak passionately about the injustice, about how actors were exploited by contracts written to benefit studios exclusively. His fight became symbolic of larger battles over creative ownership, questions that still haven't been fully resolved. Max Baer Jr. spent more time fighting about the Beverly Hillbillies than he'd spent filming it. Number 5. The show's politics were more subversive than anyone noticed.
Been besmirched, sweet Ella Mae's been courted, but the darling ain't been churched.
Now gather round, young'uns, because I got a few things to say to you.
Cool it, cats. Granny's gonna lay a few words on us. Go, Granny.
On the surface, the Beverly Hillbillies looked like simple comedy, country bumpkins making fools of themselves in the big city. But Paul Henning built subversive politics into the foundation. The Clampetts weren't the fools. The Beverly Hills elite were. Every episode demonstrated how wealth corrupted, how sophistication masked cruelty, how simple country values beat educated cynicism. Jed was wiser than the banker. Granny was more honest than the socialites. Ellie Mae was kinder than anyone in Beverly Hills. The show consistently sided with the hillbillies, exposing the wealthy as greedy, shallow, and morally bankrupt. This wasn't subtle, but audiences were laughing too hard to notice the class warfare underneath. Henning had grown up poor in Missouri during the Depression, watching wealthy people exploit those beneath them, and he never forgot. The Beverly Hillbillies was his revenge, a show that humiliated the rich while celebrating the working class. Conservative viewers loved it because it validated rural values. Liberal viewers loved it because it satirized wealth. Both were right. The show worked because it had actual politics, actual perspective, actual anger beneath the jokes. Critics dismissed it as lowbrow nonsense, but the Beverly Hillbillies was more politically sophisticated than most press did dramas, just disguised as hillbilly comedy. So, nobody noticed. Number 4. Irene Ryan died shortly after the show ended.
You're looking at a woman. All I'm gonna turn loose is about a pound of buckshot. There's half a pound. Where'd you like the other half?
In 1973, just 2 years after the Beverly Hillbillies was canceled, Irene Ryan suffered a stroke while performing in the Broadway musical Pippin. She was 69 years old and still working constantly, refusing to retire, needing to perform like others need oxygen. The stroke happened on stage during a performance, her body failing mid-scene, collapsing in front of a horrified audience. She was rushed to the hospital and lingered for several weeks before dying on April 26th. The cast was devastated. Ryan had been the heart of the Beverly Hillbillies, the performer who'd elevated every scene, the veteran who'd mentored younger actors. Her death felt like losing family. Buddy Ebsen spoke at her funeral, barely able to get through his eulogy, crying openly. Donna Douglas said it was like losing her grandmother. Even Max Baer Jr., who'd clashed with her occasionally during filming, was shaken. What made it sadder was timing. Ryan had just been experiencing a career renaissance, earning praise for her Broadway work, proving she was more than Granny. She'd been planning more theater, maybe even film work, excited about possibilities. Then she was gone. All that talent and experience extinguished suddenly. She left most of her estate to a foundation supporting aspiring actors. One final act of generosity. The woman who'd played a cantankerous hillbilly turned out to be one of Hollywood's kindest souls. Number 3. The original truck is worth more than most houses.
Well, come on, let's find that house we bought.
House they bought? In Beverly Hills?
On today's First Look, we have the Beverly Hillbillies.
The battered old jalopy the Clampetts drove in the opening credits became one of television's most iconic vehicles. It was a 1921 Oldsmobile truck, modified to look even more decrepit, held together seemingly by hope and moonshine. After filming Wrapped, the truck was stored in a CBS warehouse and forgotten for decades. Then, in the 1990s, a collector tracked it down, recognized what it was, and negotiated a purchase. The truck was in terrible condition, decades of neglect having taken their toll. But he spent years restoring it, not to pristine condition, but to exactly how it looked on television, maintaining the authenticity that made it special. When word got out that the Beverly Hillbillies truck had been found and restored, offers started arriving. Museums wanted to display it. Private collectors wanted to own it. Car shows wanted to feature it. The truck became one of the most valuable television props in existence, appraised at over $200,000, more than many actual houses. It appears occasionally at classic car events, always surrounded by security, always drawing massive crowds. People who grew up watching the show line up to photograph it, to touch it, to connect with childhood memories. That rusty old truck, which was worth maybe a few $100s when the show filmed, became priceless through cultural significance alone. Number 2. The show launched 1,000 imitators and failed spin-offs.
Even more when you get to the junction.
Petticoat Junction.
The Beverly Hillbillies' success convinced every network to develop rural comedies, flooding television with shows about farmers, hillbillies, and country folk. Paul Henning himself created 2 spin-offs, Petticoat Junction and Green Acres, both successful but neither matching the original's dominance. CBS launched The Real McCoys, Mayberry RFD, and dozens of others, all trying to capture the same lightning. Most failed quickly, forgotten almost immediately. Proof that the formula wasn't as simple as it looked. What made the Beverly Hillbillies work was the specific combination of writing, casting, and satire that Henning had perfected. You couldn't just throw hillbillies on screen and expect success. You needed the right hillbillies, the right contrast, the right targets for satire. Other shows missed that, thinking country accents and overalls were enough. They weren't. The imitations diluted the market, eventually contributing to the rural purge as networks realized they'd oversaturated the genre. But while it lasted, rural comedy dominated television, a direct result of the Beverly Hillbillies proving audiences would watch. The show didn't just succeed, it changed the industry for better and worse, creating opportunities and eventually destroying them when the trend went too far. No other sitcom in history spawned such a specific genre that so completely took over television before imploding. Number 1. Buddy Ebsen carried regret about the show until he died.
Barnaby Jones, starring Buddy Ebsen. Also starring Lee Merrill.
Buddy Ebsen, the actor who brought the backwoods to Hollywood, has passed away. He was best known as Jed Clampett, who just...
Buddy Ebsen lived to be 95 years old, working almost until the end, appearing in guest roles in television movies. But he carried complicated feelings about the Beverly Hillbillies his entire life. He was grateful, absolutely, for the fame and security it provided. Jed Clampett had made him a household name, given him financial stability, allowed him to support his family comfortably. But he also resented how it overshadowed everything else he'd accomplished. He'd been dancing on Broadway before most people watching the Beverly Hillbillies were born. He'd nearly died making The Wizard of Oz. He'd worked steadily for decades, building a respectable career, and all anyone remembered was the hillbilly. When he landed the lead role in Barnaby Jones in the 70s, he saw it as vindication, proof he was more than Jed Clampett. But even that success was framed as the guy from Beverly Hillbillies does a detective show. He could never escape it, never be seen as separate from the character. In later interviews, he'd speak about the show with measured words, praising the cast and crew while avoiding too much enthusiasm. He wanted people to know he was proud, but not defined by it. The contradiction never resolved. When he died in 2003, obituaries led with the Beverly Hillbillies, exactly as he'd feared. The role that gave him everything also took everything else away. Bonus fact: a single script sold for $10,000 at auction.
But if I'm going to do hillbillies, I want to invent them. I want them to be mine. I have.
And here come the Beverly Hillbillies.
Most television scripts are discarded after filming, recycled or thrown away, considered worthless once production ends. But one script from the Beverly Hillbillies survived and became legendary. It was a working draft from the pilot episode, covered in Paul Henning's handwritten notes, edits, and directorial comments. A crew member had saved it as a souvenir, kept it in a box for decades, and eventually decided to sell it. The auction house expected modest interest, maybe $500 from a serious collector. Instead, bidding exploded. The final price hit $10,000, purchased by a television museum that recognized its historical value. The script wasn't just paper and ink. It was a window into the creative process, showing how Henning had refined jokes, adjusted characterizations, and built the foundation for what became television's most successful sitcom. Researchers studied it, analyzing the changes, understanding how the show evolved from concept to execution. For fans, it was tangible proof that the Beverly Hillbillies had been crafted with care and intelligence, not just thrown together like critics claimed. That script, which had almost been garbage, became a historical artifact worth more than most people earn in months. And somewhere, Paul Henning would have appreciated the irony. Value being found in what others dismissed as trash.